January meeting of Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency. Privilege of the floor again. I won't call you Mike this time.
Bill.
Yeah. Jeez. We received the minutes from our last meeting. Is there any addition to and/or corrections? Motion to accept.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Treasurer's report.
Page 8, our unrestricted funds have gone up mainly because of a $170,000 transfer, so they've gone up $3,000 from prior month, but that transparently it's $173 total. The total is again total assets, current assets are up $177,000 from prior month. The total. That's total current assets. The total assets are up just under $170,000 from prior month. Current liabilities are $49,000 greater than prior month. A question, Lyle, we're really not spending money per se on the ag park, but at some point when we do, will there be sort of a line like?
I have a separate line item.
There is something at some
Yeah.
point. I mean, I
Yep.
know it's not like a financial thing right now. But
It's under ag park expenses and.
okay, yeah, I see it down here on the
Budgeted
second page.
1,500.
I wasn't sure if it was gonna show up like this or else, I mean, it's kind of inconsequential right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so page 9, which Lyle was just pointing to, we, at break even for revenues, we need to achieve 107,000 per month. If you take away the 390-odd thousand of one-time fees that are kind of built in here between Convergys, Civic Transfer, and Convergys Parking, we're woefully under the 107,000 on the average per month. We're averaging about 55-ish, or excuse me, 18,000. We've achieved 55,000 over 3 months, if my math is correct. So we're under 20,000. We need 100,000. Now, again, those one-time fees are not linear, so they're there, so they still count. So we're actually still keeping pace. Our head's above water right now. Having said that, on the operational side, again, this is basically a break-even budget that we approved. 107,000 spending will also get us to break even. At this point, if things remain linear, it looks as though we could be about 150,000 lower in expenses. I mean, it's 3 months into 12, so a lot of things can happen, but there's very good optimism that even with reduced revenues, we could potentially get close to break even.
I think we will.
So, I mean, with good luck, we could actually be, I actually did another projection, we could be $500,000 higher, but I mean, that's kind of like the best case. So anyway,
I would say
there's optimism, it's not a loss, is I guess what I'm
It's called
getting at.
creative accounting.
Well, no, I don't think it's creative, it's just luck. Page 12, our balance sheet, cash equivalents, we're up about 177,000 from prior month. Our total accounts, the other accounts, the revolving loan, et cetera, they're up about 53 odd. A question I forgot to ask, I wasn't here, or forgot to ask last month. At one point, Lyle, we had a line item called pilot checking, 75,000. Then it just disappeared in October and it never showed up
Well,
again.
if there's no money in it,
So it just got
I
pushed into
eliminate
something
it.
else? Okay.
Yes.
So it didn't really just disappear, it's just.
No, if you look back on the combined balance sheet that you reviewed first on page 8, you'll see pilot monies, but that's under receivables.
Okay.
Above that would be pilot checking, and it's 0, so it's not showing
Okay.
up.
Yeah, I see that there. It just, okay, so it's just, that's why it's
If
not.
the accounts
not
are, if the
line
accounts
item.
are 0, they drop off.
Okay, perfect. Total assets down about 23,000. And our liabilities, page 21, our accounting of loans, et cetera. Might want to correct the typo on Metro paper, Metro. I only just noticed that. It's probably been there for 12. It's probably been there for 20 months.
Been there since September, actually.
I'm like,
Yeah.
RLF receivables, so we've got a couple, three accounts that are right now past due. One is potentially close to, I mean, the Carthage Specialty Papers are the most alarming. The other two have different levels of.
Well, we've made some arrangements with Riverview and with Wright Brothers.
Yeah, I see you got a Wright Brothers arrangements.
Yeah.
So we've got, interest-wise, payments are $69,000 past due. That accounts to about 5% of the total receivables to date. If you throw the principal amount of Carthage Specialty Paper in, we're still less than 20% of the total monies of receivables. So it's budgeted. It's not a good thing if we have to write it off, but it's there. It's in the plan. If we collect it or make better arrangements, it's all the better. And the biggest thing is saving the job, saving the business. That's really the biggest thing. This is just an accounting statement. The rest of it is, there's already been arrangements for Big Brothers, and there's nothing to report on the Rogers. So we skip all the way to, I don't think there's anything else, but just bear with me.
The nice thing about when you're in that, talking about that, it's nice in one way, we've got money that we can loan out. If we get somebody that comes along that has a good viable project, we get some cash sitting here that we can loan out.
Just as an aside, by the way, Rob, we did meet with Mr. Wright from Guilfoyle and Wright Brothers and spent some time with them. He's working really hard on finding solutions, and you know, obviously we're cognizant of the service he provides the community while we put pressure on him to pay his bills, and so it's a work in progress, but I'm reasonably comfortable he has a potential solution. He's put the I'm gonna call it warehouse, you know, multi-purpose building up for sale, and hopefully we'll be able to solve that problem. We're never sure, of course, but we keep meeting with him,
Yeah.
do our best.
So I think the only notable thing that's already been mentioned is we did transfer funds from one agency to another, so JCIDA, if I get all the acronyms correct. So that
Civic
170
facilities.
Yeah, civic facilities, probably easier to say. So that $170,000 was transferred, and we already talked about that in the prior reporting. So that is page, there isn't a page number for this. It's kind of a different looking report that I hadn't seen before. I don't know if it was supposed to be in there. Not a page number on it, though. I don't know if it was intended to be in there.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It shows commitments.
So it's just really, there's just one thing on there, but it's just. I hadn't
It
seen
says
this
page
report before.
22, but it's pretty hard to see it.
Yeah, mine didn't print out.
Okay.
For some reason, well, I actually printed out.
Oh,
Last year.
I like to waste paper. Our company's in the paper business, so I gotta generate need. So that's my report. I make a motion that the report be accepted as presented.
Second.
Any questions? Comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries? Governance. Guess we
Governance.
kind of went through that in the last meeting, right?
Right. It follows the same trend. If you look at items number 1, number 8, and number 12, along with 15, follow the same trend. I just note that those areas we'll probably discuss further at the retreat. Bill, did you have anything? Any insight, any comments on Bill's on the committee? So, we discussed it, I think, enough before at LBC, so I submit this evaluation form to the full board for accepting.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries, thank you. Page 25, we have, once again, our fixed asset policy, as we did in the last meeting.
Policy.
I'll second it.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And we have a uniform guidance internal controls policy.
This is a relatively new requirement from the feds?
Well, it's not a requirement from the feds, it's a recommendation by our audit department. We don't have to have a policy for the feds, because this is part 200 that's taken from. We have to follow these guidelines anyway. So this is a recommendation from the audit firm. And in lieu of doing the old single audit that we had to do before, which was really a tremendous amount of work on my part, so.
I think she brought this up during the audit.
Yes, she
bring
did.
it up during
Yes.
the audit.
She wanted us to adapt the
Well,
policy.
she provided a policy that was developed by a school board that they felt was excellent. And all I did was go through, and where it said school board, I inserted agency and some minor changes, but it meets the requirements of the auditors. In fact, we have the Northern Regional Border Commission grant that David's talked about. They provide us with the same thing as this is. We have to follow this, so.
Okay.
So Lyle, when I read that through, it calls out the deputy CEO and the CFO as the main players of running this program.
Yes.
Is that the way it's supposed to be then?
That's correct.
Like Dave is the guy, Dave and you then?
Yeah, and on the financial and audit side of it, David and I work closely together, as we do on grants we have right now. The training grant that we have some requirements. Grants we've had for ag and through, and for marketing, through National Grid, similar requirements that we have to follow. Federal is much more stringent. This puts us in compliance with what the auditors want.
So if we have this program in place, will we always have a deputy CFO or CEO?
Well, it's either or, it says CEO or deputy.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not the both then?
Either or usually. There may be some instances where I don't think we had requirement for both to be involved, or sign off anyway. Any sign off would be with the CEO.
Okay.
I just want to know, I have all these acronyms memorized now.
You know, unfortunately, we live with these things and you get a little crazy sometimes with them.
There's like a whole page of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to just point out for this area of non-compliance,
What, Boric?
on page 12, when you look at item or cost, you go down, it says bad debts, and then it says citation of allowable rule. The citation is not allowable. This a bit of humor here. Go to page 12, on the selected item of cost addressed, part 200. This I'll probably out of context, but you go down, it's like the 6th item there, it says bad debts, then you go across citation of allowable rule, not allowable. Like alcoholic beverages, not allowable, bad debts, not allowable.
Oh,
Not chargeable to the
I
grant.
understand the bad debts, but the alcohol.
You work with the feds long enough, alcohol seems like a good idea.
They just want that Winston Churchill movie, you drank quite a bit on that
Yes,
program.
yes, indeed. It's a great move.
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
accept the adopting the uniform guidance policy as presented.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries? Dan, do you have anything else for the IDA?
No.
We got one thing that could have fit under unfinished business.
Okay.
Just an update where, we talked before about giving some time for Apex to get their updated application and the escrow account. I know they're quite busy, more so with the state than us, and we're not even prepared to start things, but, I guess a quick update on that, and then two alarming things that I've discovered that I'm a little alarmed about is all of a sudden the wallet amount is in the socioeconomic report to the PSC, but we've never been told as a board of the amount that they're suggesting, that they're running all their models on. And last evening, they dumped a alternate transmission line overland, which is unfortunately mislabeled Hounsfield alternate route, which goes smack through the town of Henderson. And I thought we've had multiple board meetings and presentations from that developer who said the overland route is off the table. So I'm finding a bit of that disingenuous, to be very frank. So that's my
Okay.
brutally, critically honest statement, and I apologize if I've upset anybody.
No,
We should know that.
Yeah,
But the pilot, when you really run through full taxation, we're north of $25,000. And the county, I think, since we've really never sat with the county, if they're sticking with full taxation, we're more like 15 or 16,000 per megawatt. And in their models, they're running 7,500 per megawatt. So I think we're so far apart that until we determine and you sit with all three agencies and kind of figure out what the hell's going on, I mean, we're on different planes.
Well, let's get the first question. Have they submitted a renewed, updated application?
Well, they,
Forgetting the 25,000. I mean, at the last meeting, they thought the only thing they were lacking was a $25,000 escrow account. And I believe there were things that we had asked for as a board to be included in their application.
there was.
That they have not submitted yet, and it's been like, what, 4 months, 5 months since we made that request?
But there's a holiday between, so.
But did he not, at our last meeting, say that he was gonna be forwarding that to us
he did.
in a
and
short
I-
period of
I
time,
sent
and we
him-
haven't?
I
Okay.
sent him a copy of the summary of the concerns that the board had expressed and said we still need to address these. You know, the principal one at that point in time was what they were going to do with the 25, but there were other things along the path that we needed to get some information.
Really just an updated application.
It's really.
Right.
It wasn't like substantial stuff.
Oh, yeah, no. So, but I think the Article 10 and all that process, and I don't know, I've not spoken to him
I
since he
guarantee that
appeared.
that's first and foremost, it's very comprehensive, so I can appreciate this is a little secondary. Also, as a reminder, I mean, the DOD clearinghouse has never been completed yet either, so we still haven't determined if there are any impacts to Fort Drum. That was also put out with some new publications the other day, along with this alternate transmission route, which it's just dumbfounding to me that we've been told many times, it's off the table, it's always underwater, and this and that, and then to publish a document that was never
Yeah,
even
it's-
put in the PIP, and I
saw a
sorry,
document, but there were 4 transmission alternatives in it.
the only one that's been presented is
It's probably
underwater.
good you weren't at the last meeting, because
Not on purpose, I was in
No,
India,
yeah,
so I didn't
no,
avoid it,
no,
I was on
no,
business,
no,
so.
No, because my takeaway point of his presentation at the last meeting was they had completely resolved all the issues with DOD.
They're not.
And they had given the overhead, or given the okay, this is fine, we're signing off on
There's
it.
a difference, FAA has determined it's not a navigable hazard, the DOD has never finished their
Well,
clearinghouse.
what he's,
They're two separate
what he
things.
portrayed to us, and he said, as I recall, DOD
He did.
had signed off on it.
I don't know if he said DOD, he said Fort Drum.
Fort
Fort Drum, yeah.
He kept saying Fort Drum.
It's not part of the public record yet, and I fully expect nobody's lying, and nobody's misleading, but it's not out there yet, and it's still the biggest unknown that we've all agreed, if any problem's a big problem.
Well,
For
in
Fort
the
Drum.
meantime, but in the meantime, a week after that, the town of Henderson has taken an official stance on it, that they are not going to support it because it is in violation of the safety issues to the military on Fort Drum.
All of that aside, I'm more dumbfounded by any overland route being presented, because I thought that was such a clear thing, that was such taboo from, we learned from the last project, the first go around, why even bother bringing it up again? And then misleadingly to call it the town of Hounsfield overland route, and not even go anywhere within 50 miles of the town, well, 20 miles of the town of Hounsfield is, I don't know.
Well, I think the developer, in any case, no matter what the project is, owes an honest evaluation of what they're proposing to this board, and we'll insist on that. And whether it happens this month or next month, frankly, all it can do is to serve to delay the process here. If they don't provide accurate information or updated information, we can't act on it. And so, you know, I mean, really it's incumbent upon them to.
And
I
I'm-
don't wanna
And I'm,
circumvent the UTEP discussions.
no, no,
We can
no, no,
get
un-
that later.
no, unfortunately, and that's why I wanted to bring up
They're
this.
not even related, in my opinion.
That's right.
Glue Island Wind Project, or whatever, Apex, whatever you call it, is not being considered under a UTEP. Our current, no, it's not been a deviation, it's, they're looking, you know, a uniform tax policy, if you read them, it's what can be done when a business comes in and fits in this policy. They don't fit in the policy, so their ask for a pilot is outside of any UTEP. So we're not looking at them under our current UTEP, under our proposed UTEP, and I'd like to make sure that we totally separate the two.
That's not true, because Dave, the process for doing a deviation is laid out in the UTEP. This, for any tax incentives granted by this agency, would you choose reviewing it under a deviation of the uniform tax exempt policy, correct?
It's,
In that
And
regard.
guess you
those
could-
procedures
I guess
are
you
laid
could call
out
it-
in the UTEP.
But
If Dave's point is you come with a different answer, is that kind of your point?
Yeah,
Well, the
it's-
point is,
it's
the
not-
current UTEP does not provide for alternative energy.
Our
in
current-
sector.
right.
Our
current one specifically
Bumps it out.
has it out of there.
So,
So when they applied, they're not applying under our UTEP, they're applying for a pilot. It's got nothing to do with, you know, our uniform, so anything they're applying for is, you know, outside of our
Yeah,
UTEP.
My original point was, I'm
But-
very surprised that we as a
That-
board have never been told 7,500 is a number that,
All right.
I mean, it
We
just
haven't
shows
heard
up
any-
in all
yeah.
the models, it's presented to the state, and we're dumbfounded, where the hell did that number come from?
well, it comes from, well, two things. We negotiated 5 years, 6 years ago, we negotiated with the former
Yeah.
developer, a pilot payment of
Almost 10 years ago,
$8,500,
wasn't it?
$8,500, plus an increase every year and so on and so on. That was used, that model was used as the basis for several wind projects across the state, except that energy prices, which this in part was based on, began to fall apart over those 5 years. So energy prices have gone down dramatically, which has driven down the note of whether the 8,500 was too high or the 7,500 was more applicable given the cost of energy. So what you've seen, and this is not our issue, this is other counties, have looked at this and said, look, energy prices are going down based on the blah, 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 we're not gonna set it at 75, and that's the number that is being used fairly uniformly across the state for current pilot.
But it works out to 70% tax abatement,
Yeah, well,
which is, to Paul's point, we go up to 50 with every other person that walks in, so,
The sad
that's why
part,
the whole cost
the sad part about,
analysis is important.
you know, and I gotta, the sad part about any renewables, and I've
Just limit
talk
it
to
to
Dan
farmers,
about-
period.
but the sad part about any renewables is that our state and government is pushing it so hard, but they can't survive without subsidies. We have Lions Falls that just shut down because they can't survive without subsidies.
I get more upset about these stranded assets where the money has already been put in, the infrastructure's there, and there's jobs already created, paychecks being rendered. We're willing to shut that down and give money somewhere else for God knows what.
Yeah,
Whether it's good or bad, and I'm not saying the other stuff is good or bad, but I get so upset about stranded assets.
Some year
Incremental costs are so
down the
much
road,
easier.
they're gonna come up with some efficiencies where they're gonna make it viable for solar and some of these others. But until it gets there, it just bugs the hell out of me that, so anyways, to
Yeah,
change the
I was-
subject.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
make my 2
No,
points with exclamations on them, and that's really.
Well, I
it.
think there's another issue, and one is, we know what the county's policy is that they expect full taxation.
Yep.
And I think before we take Apex's money, we know they're already analyzing whether they even wanna go through the agency or goes conventional financing in New York State. We need to determine what the county's position is, because my numbers are different than Rob's. But what they have in their policy, I would project at full taxation, it's 8 or 9,000 just in county taxes, regardless of school and town may take less. And shouldn't we be in a position to, before we start spending a lot of time, to tell them, well, Mr. Apex, I don't see any avenue where we're gonna be able to meet your demands for a pilot payment. And
At
let
that
them-
level.
At the level they want, so they can make a decision whether to stop coming to us
Yeah.
and go their other route. Because if we say no, that doesn't kill the project, it just means.
I guess,
we're
no,
not
I
a
agree, but
financing partner.
my only point on that is, I know what the county put out there is a policy. You know, and they
I
said,
do.
no, I know, that's what they said, full taxation. But I think we need a number that we can go back to the county and say, here, this is what they're proposing, and then county can say, no, we want full. We're not, you know, it might be 8,000, but you're only gonna give us 7,000, or whatever. I think the county needs the ability to see that number.
Well,
And
I'm
maybe- and that's just my-
suggesting I'm just suggesting that probably should happen in fairness to Apex. Don't you think that should be on the front end, whether or not we can?
I would think they would ask that on the front end,
I would think so.
you know? I
Because
would
there's
think-
other issues going down the line. I mean, I just think it was a complete and utter ignorant thing to do to have a Henderson transmission line unless the PSC made them put it in. You know, cause that's under Article 7.
Well, that's the
you
first,
know.
that's the first that I've heard of it.
It only
you
came
know.
out like
Okay.
yesterday or the day.
I mean,
Yeah.
it does show that the underwater route is a preferred route.
Yeah,
And if that's the case, why would you just show something that was such a hot button issue to begin with?
What's the likelihood of, because we had talked about this before, that, you know, the three things that really need to happen with the application is money, complete application, and really, you said a meeting with all three affected taxing jurisdictions to have the type of discussion we're speaking about.
Right.
Because if the county waivers, just says, no, just, that number's good enough, then you know what? We are acting on the whims of the affecting taxing jurisdictions.
That's-
We're not setting the rules. Just
Exactly.
right now, we don't really know what the
We're
rules
doing-
are.
That's right.
that's what I'm saying, we're
much
doing,
point.
I know that, that's what I say, the county, you know, had come out with a, you know, their position. But until they actually see the number, you know, because they have to look at their budget too, and when they see a number, they might change their mind, they might say, hey, you know, we'll accept 6,000 instead of 8,000.
Don't forget about sales
We don't
tax,
know.
because I think I've heard them before say the state can keep their,
It's a-
exemption,
the
the
same-
county's keeping their, you know,
you
so
know.
that's not a small number either.
I
Sales
did-
tax exemptions
They,
are
but
far
the
from
county's
small.
got, the taxing jurisdictions have to be able to make a decision based on a number, based on a fact, and then they can say, no, and they can address why no, or they can say, geez, we didn't think it was like that, you know, maybe six, and I'm just throwing, maybe 6,000 won't work, but we'll take 6,500, you know?
And right now, there's some numbers out there for appraised values per megawatt, and I think the county's talking about hiring Roger Tippett is the name?
No,
Tim
Roger
Rogers
is the
is-
local,
Or,
there's individuals
They
named
special-
occasionally,
Yeah.
but
Well, there is a little
we
bit of
actually
data
talk-
out there, but I mean, that all factors into too, what the hell's the appraised
No, I
value,
agree.
so you're
I
kind of
just-
working in a vacuum till you know what the hell the cost of everything
Exactly.
is. They're all guesses.
There really is no point at this, in my personal view at this moment, to get into that kind of dialogue, because we just don't have enough information.
So my only point was, we've talked about having all three parties together, just at face value, just my own calculations, it looks like we're far apart on numbers based on what we believe the county's position to be. I say believe, because we don't know, we've not had an engaged discussion. And then the other thing was this new piece of information that's just, we've sat through several meetings and I just find it,
We're, for lack of a better phrase, I don't know, this whole process is like a poker game. And,
Of course,
you know,
absolutely.
it's, really is. The question I raise is, anybody evaluated the new tax, the code, the new tax, the federal tax, plan for what parts of that are going to be enhanced or taken away in regards to renewable energy? Are there provisions in it that are addressing renewable energy?
it's very limited impact, but it's more about their base erosion amortization or something, I forget what that beat stands for.
There's also the question of the status of the energy tax credit, so that's a big.
It basically impacted their ability to sell their equity at the the same amount they were before. You probably could explain it better, Don, because I think this is your business, your past career, but it's kind of my simple explanation. The corporate taxes have gone down and the value of selling your tax credits have correspondingly gone down. So selling your
Which is a lot.
tax
of
equity
what
has
drove-
gone down. Well, that's what
Those
funds,
tax credits are what drove.
private investors, speculative
Investment
investors
flowing
will
to
sell
the
this, and
wind.
that's tax equity. They want tax credits, that's all. And then
That's all it is.
whatever, it's just moving money around on a balance sheet.
And we're really some distance from the time we'll know what the heck that is all going to be. And, you know, this may fall apart, you know, they may withdraw the application, they may force, like.
But I would suggest to everybody here, what's going on with this Apex Wind project is going to be applicable to any and all solar projects that are on the table right behind it.
Well, we've had, we're doing our best. We've had the fellow from NYSERDA, whose responsibility is to determine all of these impacts of solar projects in the state. He's been up, we've met with him from the tri-county regions. He will be back at our invitation to do a presentation for local governmental jurisdictions so that they understand how this new calculator, they call it, factors into all of this. And the problem is the rules of the game change damn near every day we're dealing with this thing. You know, you think you've got your arms around it, next thing you know, something else happens and they've changed it, so.
But one of the biggest, I think we all can concur, I can't, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the biggest driving force behind renewable energy evolves around two things. Purchase power agreements, which were elevated high,
Gotta have it.
you gotta have them, and now they're completely, I mean, some of those are half of what they were 5 years ago. And New York State's a player in that. And the other component is those federal energy tax credits, those diverting the money from Wall Street
Absolutely.
to pay for bricks on.
It's really all about
cement.
taxes at the end of the day.
There's a small additional thing too, and this is inter-border trade, is Canada has feed-in tariffs, which force renewables to be fed into their grid more so they're dumping water across the penstocks and not generating electricity up in Messina. It's the same physical structure that we are generating so I mean, there's, again, I go back to these stranded assets, we're not generating, call it whatever you want, it's energy, I don't know if it's renewable, but you're not generating energy that the governments of Canada and the US have already paid to put infrastructure in to force some other, you know, it's just propping up, it's a false sense of.
Well, government does it all the time. If they want something to happen,
Did it with
they
peanuts, do it with
incentivize it.
milk, I mean, you know, we do it with things.
We do it with
to
everything.
keep
The
trade
PPAs,
Yeah.
the process called
Well, you're
PPA,
right, David.
power purchase
They get
agreements, were
subsidized
established
from
when
state.
energy prices
They don't.
were on the way up.
The
That's,
solar
that
guys
whole
come in,
notion about how to
programs are
address
out there
this
for subsidies.
was energy, you know, and then suddenly natural gas prices go boom. Well, now this whole notion about the PPA and how it affects.
can't compete
these
with natural
projects
gas
has
at
gone
this
to hell
point.
in a handbasket. Because now they
Price-wise.
don't work really well. They simply don't.
But another factor that we should be aware of, you look at the rise and fall of renewable energy, it was on the coattails of stock market crash in '09. And one of the greatest things that was on the playing field to help the economy through it was new jobs, new technologies, and renewable energy was the bright sector. It's like, this is where we need to be going. Well, now, with numbers off Wall Street, it's like, who really needs, you know, renewable energies costing us this, and this?
We talk about very few jobs in wind farms, there's even less in solar. They did that one at Bosse's, my brother worked on it. It was built by a company from South Carolina, and that's where it's gonna be monitored and run from. There's gonna be just, you know, guys brush hogging around them or weed eating around the things. There's 0 jobs posted. in
Sorry for
Bedford.
delaying the interview meeting for another.
Oh, no.
15 minutes.
No,
I really think that staff should make contact with the county to see what their position's gonna be, to see if they have a number in mind before we get down here, because I think it's not fair to Apex to run this out for 6 months and then not be able to provide a pilot agreement that they can accept. We're just kidding ourselves. I mean,
Oh, and I'm not disagreeing with you there, Paul. I'm just saying that, but the county needs to know a number. You know, I believe that,
Well, if the county's has
Either no or
retained
provide a
an
number.
appraiser, I think they're gonna generate their number. And,
yeah, well, you know, and so that's where you get the jurisdictions together and say, here. But I think there's a,
reviewed some.
Well,
I think like Rob said, there's a lot of answers to be answered before,
the money hits
There's
the
questions
table.
we haven't asked yet.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to know, and again, I reiterate, we are acting on
So-
the whims of the affected
Yep.
taxing jurisdiction, so that's as a board, we just have to make sure that logical choices are being made and the right questions have been asked.
now I wanna follow back on, to move away from Apex and the wind, and I wanna follow back to what Don mentioned earlier. That, he's in the process right now, getting started with a renewal on our Convergys building. And from what I'm seeing from it, we're gonna have to get aggressive to keep that company here. Now, we can look and say what we wanna say, I mean, there's, at any given point in time, between 300 and 800 or 900 jobs here in the city. But we also own a building sitting there that if they move out of our building, we're stuck with an empty shell building that I don't see anybody coming in to fill or anything.
City parking.
So,
10
it's-
million.
There you go.
10 million?
That's
It's,
scary.
it's
That's-
down,
It's
and it's,
another
and once again, you gotta look at, they're a worldwide company with 30,000 employees, and the employees here in Watertown are some of their most expensive because of the New York state laws and the minimum wages and everything else.
3 months ago, they were talking about expanding that operation?
It comes and goes.
It comes and goes.
Client.
It comes and goes,
I mean,
So-
I understand this is a cost to operate at that facility, whether they pay it or not.
They call it cost per seat,
Well,
and if it compares favorably.
New York is
So-
by far the cheapest thing.
Yeah, it is what we do.
We've made a non-investment environment.
so
You have to do
what I'll probably do is Don gets into it after, because I know the last time, I mean, we met with, 5 years ago, we met with the head of,
Don, whatever his name is,
yeah,
Ireland.
he flew in from Ireland, and we met with him and like that, and now they've taken a different look, and they've got a real estate company, real estate management that we have to deal with, and they're out of Florida, and so as Don gets into this process, I'm probably gonna ask him to work, have at least a couple board members work with him, so we can try to come up with some good ideas to how we can make sure that company stays here.
What scares me above and beyond our control is looking at trends. And I use the retailing trend through the holidays as an example, the change in it, the online. So goes the communication side. You're seeing it right now. Their biggest contract is one of the DirecTV or one of the satellite, it's.
One of the radios, I thought.
Well, it's the TV packaging. I mean, that's been the foundation of that call service.
And they're getting big into,
Servicing.
they had a big contract with a medical company. And one of the driving things that we've always heard from day one when we brought them, when they got here, was the ability of older people to talk to someone that they could understand on the other end of the phone. If you ever call a service area and you hear somebody go, and you say, Jesus, can you get somebody that can speak English that I can understand? There's so many elderly people that use these call services, and that's why Watertown has been so important to them, because Watertown not only gives them the person that can fluently speak English so you can understand it, but if it happens to be a foreign language person, you got somebody sitting right next to them that might know Mandarin and somebody that might know, Spanish. And so Watertown has been giving them that ability for some of these contracts.
Boards are probably at your disposal, you use all the tools in your toolbox.
But
The scary part
Keep
is
this
that
quiet.
industry, that DirecTV industry is gonna be a thing of the past. With new communications, Netflix, it's like my package, it's like I pay $80 a month, and I get 280 channels, and if I just, give me 2 out of those, give me C-SPAN, give me Discovery, us, and it's like, take all this other garbage.
You don't watch Come Farm with us on YouTube?
RFD. Well, the interesting,
I would have
the
expected.
interesting thing about that
screaming
is,
that.
I follow that because you look at where they've taken themselves the last 5 years. RFD TV is the fastest growing channel on that whole,
Yeah, I watch that once in a while.
and
It's
it
interesting.
dovetails in with
Yeah,
farmersonly.com,
farming
dating service,
FTV.
and race, and Jay's
You
TV,
cannot
radio
beat
show.
hard
It's
work
like,
and
I
dedication.
can't understand why.
When you're
people are
vested
so
into your
terrible.
business, you care about your business, and you cannot beat that.
Yeah.
Touching your business every day, hard work.
The only thing I would ask about Convergys or Carthage or whatever is that information please stay within this world. If it got out that this is being discussed and other is being discussed, I don't know what the impact of that would be. Certainly not good. It's early in the game. So far, we have a good relationship in these discussions. I'm hopeful that, you know, at the end of the day, we can find a mechanism by which we can keep them here. I think the answer is we will be able to. But that said, you know, it's a negotiation that has to go on, and having support from the board will be critical as we get there, because it's important for us, and you know, we look at it $800,000 a year worth of building maintenance and that kind of stuff that we have to concern ourselves with, that Convergys is responsible for paying for. On the other hand, you can see what would happen if Convergys moves out, and as Dave says, the scenario is we end up with a vacant building there, and we don't want to do that. So we're gonna have to find some accommodation. I don't know what that's going to be. We won't know until we sit down and start hammering that out. I think it's gonna be fine, but
This
please.
is all occurring first quarter? First quarter, you're all within the next several months?
The negotiations will be over the next several months,
Yeah.
or several weeks, we're not sure. We may be able to button it up fairly quickly. Then again, these may, you know, but we're very cognizant of what that represents. We're very unique. This is not, we're not a private business offering a lease for space. We're an agency who's concerned primarily with jobs. And on the other hand, we have responsibilities financially to maintain that building. So, you know, we've got to keep that in mind as well, so.
Are we doing anything with workforce development? And Convergys, anything to help them with workforce development?
The boss came up with an idea, which I thought was absolutely super. We're gonna present that to them, is to develop with some of their resources, a scholarship for Convergys employees, of some type, to be determined. But, you know, one of the troubles any one of those types of call centers have is maintaining good quality people. You know, it's an entry level oftentimes, and, you know, they get some training and they're gone. They have a resume builder and they're gone. Perhaps by getting a scholarship in play, it's something they can deduct from their corporate tax bill. It's something that would help them with the workforce. And so I put together some stuff based on Dave's idea. We'll present that to them, along with some other ideas, and hopefully we'll come up with the right formula. But it's the kind of thing that goes on in this agency all the time. We have 2 or 3 that are walking on a banana peel right now, and as long as we're talking, I would tell you, a lot of this is being driven by the silliness that's being proposed by New York State. And we're having a hell of a time trying to counterbalance the increasing costs that are being distributed to our local businesses by the state. And how the hell do we offset that? You know, we have enough trouble trying to develop Jefferson County, which is out in the middle of nowhere, according to many people. And now New York State has gone bizarre with Family Leave Act and scheduled people out 2 weeks in advance and so on and so on.
But it's the removal of salt deduction that's the biggest problem that our governor has. Doesn't realize the problem, the only reason salt's a problem is because we're so overtaxed.
Maybe our first offsite meeting on the Capitol in Rotunda. We'll invite ourselves.
One comment I'd like to mention, not that it has anything to do with our business here, is just I wanted to express my concern about Freeman Bus. They lost a big contract
Yes.
last night. I think it's their only major contract, and I don't know what that's gonna spell for them, but I don't think it's gonna be good.
It's not good.
They're probably gonna go out of business.
That's what I
You know,
hope.
you know, the sad,
Yeah.
we had just begun working with them on converting their buses to CNG. And now you say, okay, well, what does that mean? That's about $1 a gallon in savings, our estimates are, at diesel fuel. So if we were to translate that, they ought to be able to reduce their cost of that contract. A couple, 3, 4 million, I'm not just sure. But we just started the process when this happens, and that's the problem with economic development. We have already reached out to the
Yeah,
county
contract.
and asked them
First student.
to look at CNG as an option for their
Same
vehicles.
ones that took
because
over
they
Indian
can
River,
reduce those
General
taxes.
Brown from Freeman.
That was a big difference,
So
5
those
million.
jobs just shift then?
It was more than that, wasn't it?
Well, between the bids, I mean, not the
It
whole,
was a huge.
yeah, so, yeah,
22 and,
yeah, I think it's for 5 years.
yep,
But yeah, so they were
that was significant.
5 million over, and
That's
So-
what I heard on the news, I heard it quickly, but it sounded like they said 800 jobs being lost. which I couldn't
65.
believe.
I think-
80, I think.
yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, I could believe 800 bucks, I wasn't quite, I heard it so quickly and it.
Yeah, it's probably more like 80, but it's still in all, I mean,
It's more than one.
more than one. And if it's one, it's a problem for us.
But if there's one sector, that those jobs shouldn't go away, they should just move from year to year, it would be that kind of
If they-
situation.
yeah, if they hire local.
If they
Other
hire
than what-
local,
Other than what Freeman has.
and Freeman, with all due respect, has had problems with the workforce in the past, getting people.
Right.
So they've increased their amount of per hour wages for those kinds of jobs. I wonder whether first student or whatever they call that will be able to meet those same, wage numbers.
I think it'd be a stretch to think that anybody's gonna fly up here from Atlanta to drive a school bus. I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
Agreed, absolutely
We're
agree.
local part-time.
Notwithstanding, they already have, presumably 1 to 3 year old buses, because school buses traditionally have a short lifespan.
Yeah, sure.
And I think just by designation, I also heard on the news that they're talking about new equipment and new buses, so it's like buying new things and, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. None of it makes
Latest
sense.
technology, I heard, and
Yeah,
latest this and that.
some of this makes
So,
sense.
yeah, we don't know what the impact is going to be. That's a company that's been in business here for, 90 years, something like that.
Long time.
Long time.
And, you
Long
just
time.
hate to see that, because right now, I can call Mr. Freeman on the phone and we can have a dialogue about Fort Drum. We were talking about transportation just recently to Fort Drum. Well, I'm not sure I can do that with whoever's gonna run for student, because they are gonna be in,
Different area code.
yeah, right, they don't care. I shouldn't say don't care, I don't know it, but they don't have the same vesting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn unless we're not.
So,
Do we have a second?
that we
All in favor, aye?
I
think we started